Welcome back to another episode of The Loco Fit Show, where we redefine what healthy means to you. I'm your host, Laurin Conlon, and this week I'm joined by Coach Gill.
Hi.
And we are doing another Laurin and Gill Reacts.
Woo.
Woo. Y'all,
Party.
we got some good ones.
Bangers.
Okay. To start off the show, and this is just a perfect example of what we're talking about here, like with this whole segment. And this isn't really like outrage by any means, but my mom was just up here this weekend and this was actually on her feed. And I was like, okay, please send this to me, right? Because like I don't see a lot of these things because it's like not the things that are on my feed. And because I don't even like know what to search to like have, like I would like for these things to populate so that I could like find them and react to them.
But then you're stuck seeing more of that on your Explore page.
That's true. Yeah. Well, not like it's much better. My shit's weird as hell, but this was just like, you know, on my mom's page in some way. And it was like, what did it say? Pull it up. Now I want to see exactly what it said.
Bread will make you lose weight. We don't need to say anymore.
Yeah. Okay. And this is not like one carb bread. Okay.
Oh no. Yeah. And then part of that, it says high protein, no flour, rich in omega-3.
All facts, all factual things. But this bread is not going to make you lose weight. Also, the first and main ingredient in the largest quantity is cottage cheese. Hey, just putting it out there. If anybody ever gives me a piece of bread that's made from cottage cheese, we're no longer on speaking terms. I'm just letting you know.
Just leave.
Cottage cheese is not a part of my life in any way. And I am sure there are probably some recipes that you could finally blend it into and I wouldn't be able to tell. But bread? That's like, you know, when you order like, a cauliflower steak. No.
Nope.
No.
I just thought of another TikTok that you would absolutely hate. It has to do with cottage cheese.
Dude, cottage cheese is so gross. But
is it the texture or the taste?
Yeah, it's both.
Oh, okay.
It's both.
You just don't like cheese.
Yeah. But it doesn't taste like cheese, does it? It just tastes...
I haven't had cottage cheese. I don't think ever.
Oh, what?
I've had rice pudding, but that's tough. I'm just thinking of things with textures.
Yeah. A sweet dessert.
Yum.
Not the same thing. I mean, honestly, people really like... I mean, it is pretty like high protein and satiating.
I'm thinking like it can't be too different from Greek yogurt taste-wise, no? Or it is?
It is.
Okay.
There is a very cheesy, chunky element.
Well, I could see the texture thing being weird.
Yeah, no, not about it. But aside from the fact that that's the primary ingredient, just the idea that a bread would be labeled, and the other ingredients too, it was like whole eggs, oatmeal, and then like a ton of different seeds.
Ton of seeds, yeah.
And like nuts. Again, all great ingredients, like not like, yes, it's flour free, it's, you know, high in omega-3s, all of this. But that bread is not going to make you lose weight. And everybody listening to the show obviously knows that, right? But this is what we are up against, like as a industry and as just consumers, you know, because oftentimes we're flooded with these messages and then people like, you know, again, that's on my mom's page.
Yeah.
Thankfully, like our parents know a lot now because of us, you know, and just being, you know, around us and us, you know, talking to them about things. But like...
And it also brings up a good point because I was thinking of this morning when I was drinking my first cup of coffee of the day about like
triple star day.
How yay she reminded me of that this morning, wink wink, and I was thinking about that this morning about like not only like, you know, how these things like are promoted and like pushed towards consumers, but like the marketing and like the buzzwords and like these like just the words and the vocabulary these people or companies, whatever you want to call them, will use to just not prey on people, but like in a way, yeah, you know, you could be preying on certain populations of people who don't know what they're doing or who are struggling with certain issues. And they'll say like, you know, hey, this will make you lose weight, this method, or, you know, this strategy, like they'll make it sound bigger and more complicated and more sciencey than, you know, they'll just use all these like fun and fancy words to overcomplicate or like make this thing sound like mysterious, like, oh, you haven't tried this yet, have you? Right. And it's super like just icky, I think.
Yeah. And why people are doing that is because they're using language that drives certainty in a process that's often uncertain, right? Like with how your body looks, how it feels, how it performs. That is not certain. That's not guaranteed we've been coaching people for almost 20 years combined, right? Like there is literally nothing set in stone that creates, do X, Y happens. Like, yes, 80% of the time we can imagine that, but there's still this 20% of uncertainty, right? Mm-hmm. And there's so many other factors that are involved, and that's what we talk about so much in the show. But people are using that language because they want that certainty. And when they feel like they're lost, and that's what you're talking about, like mm-hmm. preying on vulnerable, like using language that, basically preys on vulnerable people. Because if you want an answer and then you're given it, you're like, yes, okay, that must be it. Like, that's the secret. That's it. And our brains are silly. Like, even though like logical us can oftentimes like know that.
Silly.
So silly. So silly. Why are you like this?
So quirky.
I'm so quirky. It's, we can all be tricked into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it often happens in things that we know less about, right? Like, we know a lot about this, so we can look at that and be like, well, obviously that's incorrect.
Yeah.
But if somebody were to use fancy buzzwords that made me feel good about real estate or investing, I'd be like, oh yeah, probably checks out. Maybe not for me because I'm just a skeptic, but for things that I know less about, I can't fact check it because I just don't know. Like, I have a sort of an understanding. I know enough to know that those are the right mm-hmm. words to use, but then I'm like, and that's like the outcome that I want. But like, is it really, So
yeah.
Just stuff like that just aggravates me because, again, like that was like on my mom's page. And like, while she would know that wouldn't be the case, part of her brain go, well, could it? Like, I know that doesn't, probably not, but maybe.
Yeah. It's just like, it sparks a little bit of curiosity to where it's like, oh, like maybe I'll second guess myself. Mm-hmm. Like, oh wait, I know this, but like, this is also using new words and like, And
then the problem with the algorithm is that then if you stay on that, then you're going to get 5 more bread videos that are going to be losing weight bread. Yeah. And then you're all of a sudden just
losing weight bread.
You're going to be eating bread all day and then gaining weight.
Yeah.
Because now you're just eating a lot of calorie dense bread. So that is our first reaction and rant, because...
And that also applies to any other video you might see where it's like, eat this and lose weight, or eat this and burn the body fat off your body.
What was the method that we talked about, like, maybe 2 podcasts ago? The treadmill thing. Like, it had that name.
12-3-30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, like checks out. Like, that's a great... Like, honestly...
Like, it can be helpful, but it's not going to directly, A equals B.
Yeah. And then you see what I see sometimes is like, I swear people just like all post the same stuff. Mm-hmm. Like one video will do well with that. And then you see like 10 others that are using like the same language. And like, I don't really understand what that's all about. Like, why are we seeing all these same videos from different people who it doesn't seem like maybe they know each other. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe.
I just feel like that's a lot of social media too, where like one thing will do well for someone and then people will kind of ride that wave in a way where they'll be like, oh, this is trendy right now, or like, oh, I should mimic what this person did. And it's like, I mean, gross from a perspective of like, I mean, you're not actually going to like, you're not trying to put any good information out. You're just doing it for, just more of that engagement or follows in the hopes of maybe you can sell something, or hey, like maybe I can go viral and just whatever. I feel like that's a lot of social media where it's all one, like you see one trend one time and then your entire feed is like that same thing, just regurgitated in a different way.
Yeah. And it's so hard because there are certain trends that I do like, right? That I'm like, oh, I want to like there's one, it was a thing like 2 months ago, so I'm like, do I post it now? Because like I didn't when it was a thing, and kind of the I can't remember exactly what it was called, but like social media doesn't see this, or social media is a highlight, whatever it was, and then
I like
people
that one
did
too.
the swipes.
Yeah, there are some of them I like, but I also didn't do it when it was.
I'm bringing it back. Let's bring it back. We're bringing it back. By the end of the week, we're making a post with that. I'm saying it for both of us. It is May.
Yeah. It is May 8th.
May 8th. My great watch, my invisible watch that I have. We're posting it by the end of the week.
Yeah,
so
there are certain
you guys
things.
Hear this, go back and check our.
Who are we talking to?
Skelly and Grogu.
That's Skelly. That's a sloth, Laurin.
I know his name is his name is Skelly.
Oh, that's cute.
I actually didn't name him that, which I know sounds surprising.
Oh, that is.
If you guys can't see, you probably can't. But I have a giant Grogu who I know does not fit the aesthetic whatsoever.
Too bad.
However, he's like one of those squishmallow. Yeah, squashmallow. And he's so comfortable on your back. And then Chanel actually got me this weighted sloth, and his name per Amazon is Skelly. But he's like 4.5 pounds. And I was like, dude, this is such a strange gift. And then I was like, oh no, I get it.
Yeah. It's like a little weighted
No, I get it. So he's great. So he's just out because I enjoy just having him around. So, I'm just I'm talking to them.
Yeah.
I'm being inclusive of everybody here.
Anything she could do to ignore me.
Okay, show me your surprise.
Oh, right. So I have, we decided that I wasn't going to show Laurin this until we were filming and recording. And this is something that you'll probably, I can't wait to see your face because you make some funny faces when you see things.
The Botox has worn off. So yeah, we're going to get the full expression though.
But I found this, okay, might be old, but I feel like not a lot of people, at least the trends or like these like things that go viral on TikTok are not the same as like what you see on Instagram. Oh, no. So I didn't see anyone talk about this on Instagram, and I didn't mention it on Instagram because I was like, I feel like I'm going to say this and people are going to think like, what the hell are you talking about? But yeah, let me just play this for you.
Generator. That's what this is. So you guys, I was with my brother-in-law this weekend. He had told me about this, I want to say like 2 months ago, and the company contacted me and just saying, yes, I really want to try this. So I haven't personally done this, but water is not hydrogenated or does not have hydrogen in it.
These companies got to be banking on really dumb people who buying this stuff. It's like, I'm pretty sure we learned what water was composed of in like 4th grade, maybe even 3rd grade, maybe even 2nd grade. I probably knew this coming out of the cooter. You know what I mean? Like, 2 hydrogen per 1 oxygen. That's water. Water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen.
But
who is buying this? Who is buying? Please show me your degree. Show me your high school diploma, please. They let you out. They let you have one. They let you have one. They gave you one. No way.
But the fact that it's literally like this, also just water bottle, that like it's even if it was adding like I don't like it doesn't look like it would add anything.
And I think there's another, I couldn't find the original creator.
What is going on with TikTok and water? Because apparently
there's a whole other water segment we got here today, guys.
There's so many fluids on TikTok.
I didn't find the original creator because there's so many stitches for this original video. But I did see like she was saying something about it helping with insulin sensitivity or like helping, just like making a ton of claims about like it's gonna hydrogenate your water. It's like, lady.
Yeah. And the thing that you bought that was probably that looked like it was $20, I don't think is really gonna. Now, filtering your water, absolutely. There's definitely something to be said about filtering water, but that also is generally a system.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Not like not what that was showcasing. Nor was that adding hydrogen. That was just filtering out all of the bullshit.
Yeah, I'm like, can we? Like, this is just a great example of like what they're trying to do with like marketing too, where it's like using all these buzzwords or telling you something that like, oh, your water actually isn't hydrogenated enough, and if you want to be your healthiest or detox or whatever, like this is what you need.
Improve insulin sensitivity, because everybody generally kind of knows people know what insulin is. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't know what insulin sensitivity is. So to your point earlier, they're playing on that kind of like mystery of like, oh, well, I kind of know what that is. Like, do I have an issue with this? Like, should I, maybe
this is the problem.
Yeah. Oh, because you have insulin sensitivity issues, you have a belly, and it's like, okay, let's just reduce it to the most basic thing when we're not even like talk. And I will say that I do think that there are definitely people who overcomplicate things, right? For the sake of overcomplicating it. And we don't need to do that. But there is like a middle ground between like dumbing things down so much that we don't get like the actual information out properly to then being like overly complex for no reason, and it's like there is so much middle ground here that we seem to never find it, especially on TikTok. And the water situation on TikTok seems pretty
concerning,
pretty troublesome, guys. So we have hydrogen water filters. We also have water talk is just kind of a whole thing. And you showed me some horrifying segments of that while we were prepping for the show. And good God. So I guess in a nutshell, in a TLDR, what is water talk for people who didn't know? Like, I had no clue up until about
honestly,
10
I don't
minutes
even
ago.
know if I fully understand it yet.
You don't know the depths of the despair.
I don't know the depths of, like, it's like a whole, like, subgenre in TikTok where people will, like, I guess, spice up their water or, like, flavor, or, like, just create this entirely new flavor for their, like, entire fluids for the day, basically. So, like, we saw a couple of videos of, like, you'll see a lot of Stanleys in these videos too, like the Stanley cups.
Oh my God, with the keychain,
the water keychains on them. But basically, my understanding is that, like, people who do not like drinking water or can't stand the taste of, like, regular water on their own, they'll put a bunch of additives and other stuff in it to make it enticing and taste good. But we've seen some pretty crazy combinations. Like, it's one thing to put, like, some Crystal Light in your water bottle, right? Or, like, you know, I think I've even had, like, you know, Gatorade packets, like,
what's the squeezy
the
one?
Mio drops, like, that's one thing, right? But this is taking it, like, times 50 or times 100 with the combinations and, like, the flavors and, like, there's, like, unicorn water.
It's the amount.
It's the amount of, like, these whether it's real sugar or I don't know what is in, like, some of these, like, flavor packets people add into them, but we saw one where it's, like, 2 full-size flavor packets, some caramel sauce, like cinnamon, like, there's all these Lauren's face right now.
I was struggling to watch
all
this.
These, like, extra additives that you're adding into it. And we were talking and we were like, this is, like, making me bloated and I haven't even, like, tried this, you know. There's so much in these where it's like you're making, it's like, can we call this water? It's very, like, it's sugary, gritty, like, there's a whole other slew of stuff in this.
Yeah.
And you could say, like, oh, well, they're still drinking their water. But on the other hand, I think there's a lot to be said about, you know, hey, like, is this your entire day of just, like, fluids? And how do these things add up? And how do you also, how does everyone respond to, like, that amount of, like, artificial sweetener and, you know, just fake, you know, fake things, like fake sugars, when it comes to, like, digestion, bloating, like, all that stuff too. So there's a couple other videos where someone said water talk made me fat, and hey, like, it kind of goes hand in hand with the first topic we had with the bread, but same idea here, where it's like we're, you know, adding all of these things in, and it's like, hey, like, is it, you know, maybe we just have to kind of pay attention to the quantity. Not saying this is inherently bad or good, but there's moderation and there is, like, a limit to when we do add certain things in, and there's a place where it's, like, reasonable, and there's also a limit and a threshold where this is probably a bit excessive, and it probably also, like, I would argue, maybe addicting to a point when it comes to, like, that artificial stuff that you're adding in.
Oh yeah, when I see things like that, it just really screams that people are focusing on what is missing and what I'm lacking, right? And when people are constantly doing that, they're never going to be satisfied. And this goes for, like, all things in life, right? Not just water talk, right? This goes for, like, everything. But especially in this domain that we're talking about with, like, food and fluids, and just, like, taste in general, right?
Yeah.
If you're always thinking about, like, oh, I want something to taste like this, or hunger, right? If you're constantly, like, how can I not be hungry? If you're always thinking about not being hungry, you're constantly focusing
worse
on hunger, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're like the one lady was trying to make, like a
king cake water,
which is delicious. And that water looked horrendous. But let's just say, right? And again, that's one example. If this lady makes it one time and is like, oh, I'm happy with this flavor, that's not the problem. But what happens to a lot of people, and we know this from coaching clients, like, it's not usually just like, oh, I made this one time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When people are doing this, like, they're making all of these TikToks and all these things, and they're constantly just, like, making new things and having that every single day, it becomes this, like, cycle of, like,
reliance.
Yes. And then nothing is ever really, like, truly satiating, like, because of that.
Or satisfying.
Yeah. Because you're always thinking, I need things in, like, big quantity. And that kind of goes back to, like like throwback to anybody who has been in the fitness space for this long. Like,
oh my God, are you talking about Halo Top?
Just like, like all the old IFYM stuff, right? Like, you know, when we used to like, okay, let's make this because it tastes like that. And let's make these treats.
Bake
and
our Quest bars. Yeah.
Let's do all this crazy stuff. And it's like, if you were just to have one small amount of something and were actually allowed yourself to enjoy that and like fully immerse yourself like in that experience. Again, we'll use king cake because that's an actual example of like a real thing. Like, no, is eating king cake every day a good idea? Obviously not. And this lady in particular was someone who had lost a lot of weight. So I understand when people are in a situation like that, they don't want to, they've likely had problems with overconsumption before, right? So I get that. But that's where we can start to work things down to say, okay, not overnight, but hey, maybe over time, the end goal could be to have a slice of that, to really, really enjoy it, and then be able to move on. And that is obviously easier said than done. I'm not trying to sit here and say that that's super easy, because it's not. There's going to be a lot of, you know, trial and error in between all that. But this like obsession with like quantity and like I just find really drives obsessiveness with clients around food and like just taste in general. And then when you're constantly drinking or eating things like that.
Yeah, I was going to touch on... I wanted to touch on the like hyperpalatability aspect of it too, where if you're constantly drinking or like, you know, having these like very high sugary, even if it's, you know, fake sugar too, but like having that like palate and having that like hyperpalatable food or drinks like constantly in your day, you're likely going to crave more of those things because this is something that is likely, you know, spiking your dopamine. And, you know, just psychologically, like we will crave more of those dopamine spikes. And it's going to kind of put you in the cycle where it's like more of that, you know, kind of not addictiveness, like seriously, but like more of that like reliance where it's like, oh, I want more of this. And yeah, to a certain extent too, like if you're adding like more calorie dense things into these waters, like the caramel syrup we saw, that is stuff too that will add up if your goal is to lose fat and lose body weight, right? But you know, it's more of like that hyperpalatability aspect too, where it's like we're constantly like feeling the need to like have more of these things. And I would also argue too, like there's a point where if like you're also using this to avoid hunger, you're doing the opposite as far as really finding some of that stability with gauging your hunger throughout the day and being able to like naturally let that do its course, you know, let yourself feel that and see what's normal for you.
Oh, absolutely. And our brains love novelty, right? And that's what you're talking about with like the dopamine, and that goes for every single thing. So if we're constantly creating these new stimuli with these new flavor profiles, right? Like we can literally break it down in that way. Like our brain does not perceive a difference of that versus something else, you know? And they've done research on food variability and, you know, or food variety. And like, so say they had there
was a yogurt. Right?
Yeah, the yogurt. I'm thinking of the yogurt study with it was like, there was one flavor versus, was it four?
Three? I think
it was
3 or 4. Yeah.
And they had people, you explain it.
Well, they had one side of the study was doing less variety, where they only had like one option, I think. And then the variety group had 3 or 4 yogurt flavors to choose from and try and, you know, kind of, you know, eat ad libitum, basically. And what they found was that those who had the variety, those who had the choice, consumed more calories than those who didn't have any variety, which is super interesting because, you know, they're probably, you know, picking and trying and, you know, that kind of stuff. Also, when we think about that variety, it's also like that excitement of like, oh, something new, you know, that dopamine spike. So it was super interesting to see, like, you know, you would think, or maybe you wouldn't, I don't know how you would have perceived that, like seeing it before you knew like the result, but like part of me would think too, like, oh, well, you know, you're still choosing one, but no, like if you have more options, you could be likely or vulnerable to overeat or just consume more than maybe you initially anticipated.
Yeah, just overconsume. Yeah. Just overconsume in general. And while, most people aren't sitting around, you know, eating 4 different yogurts, it's a perfect example to overlay something as boring as that, right? Where you would think, okay, I'm kind of getting bored of eating yogurt, right? There's not even like a lot of texture here. Just the fact that the flavor change increased the amount. Think about that for everything else that we have in life. And again, like these drinks, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you were saying like they're pouring all these packs and it's just, again, it's just an example of the overconsumption mentality that when people are leaning into that while I understand thinking that it's helpful, it actually can end up being hurtful. And if instead we were just to lean in to be like, hey, yeah, I'm going to have some boring time with either my food or, my drinks, and things will stabilize and they will recalibrate. It does take a little bit of time. I'm not going to say it doesn't, any kind of like dopamine detox does take time. But I would gather to say if you're someone who does consume a lot of those types of things, if you stop or at least reduce your consumption for 4 weeks, which I know probably sounds like a lot, you know what I mean? Same thing goes with like stuff like energy drinks, right?
Yeah.
I know that's such a small example, but that's also something that a lot of people have issues with, right? Not just because of the caffeine and the energy, but also like the taste. And there's something about like an afternoon energy drink. Yeah, it's the whole experience. You crack, you hear that. It's like there's a little bit of the bubbles. Like it has
like an association
flavor
with it too. If you're like grabbing it on your way to the gym or sipping it through your it's just
an afternoon energy drink hits. Everybody knows that. Anybody who drinks energy drinks knows that. So I get it. But if you find yourself always having it, you know what I mean, or always trying to find this new flavor or do that, and you're finding yourself reliant on it, and again, it's not just from a caffeine perspective. That's where we have to say, okay, hey, let's maybe like pump the brakes. Could I try if you liked the fizziness, maybe get like a sparkling water. I like kombucha, which
I
is
just started drinking kombucha.
Oh, it's so
I'm
good.
a kombucha girly.
And kombuchis. And what I like about those is that they're pretty mild in flavor. Well, some of them.
It's like I have it. Well, I do like diet soda. Like I'll have if we get them. Since I've been drinking kombucha, I haven't picked up diet sodas from the store, which is funny. But I'll have like a little bit at the end of the day, and like that's like my little. But I feel like that's just like it doesn't have like a crazy like flavor profile, but it's like I don't know.
It's enough.
It
gives you something that's. I always say it's not water.
A little bit of variety.
A little bit of variety, but it's not overdoing. It's not like blasting your dopamine system to where you're like rocked. God, what is like, there's some, I've even had some energy drinks that I'm like, I literally cannot. People talk about, oh, I love this one. I try it and I'm like, my taste buds are like floored. And I'm like, how do people drink this?
I can't drink, what's it called? Alani. I can't drink that.
I like Alani's.
I think I tried one of them.
Okay.
And it was okay. But the others are like very, very sweet.
So you'll appreciate this. When I was in Australia, total tangent, not relevant, but you guys might find this interesting. So here we go. Joe's like, oh God. So a few things. In Australia, they just don't have as many options for a lot of packaged foods and things like that, because obviously the States is just over insanity with all that. So they have a normal amount of variety in their options. But they really just don't have a ton of energy drinks. And they have Monster, and there's like one other company that I've had that I just like don't really like. I don't even know the name of it. But I don't ever really see like a ton of other things, right? And I was getting groceries, and then I see on the end cap, there's like the end cap of the store, and there's like a sale section. Yeah. And there was one case of, so Alani did like a collab with Kim K. So whatever the fuck that flavor is called, something Kimmy, whatever it is. I see this bottle. I'm like, oh, cool. They must have Alani's here. I've never seen an Alani in Australia. Let me go check the energy drink aisle to go see what other flavors they have. Not one to be found. Mind you, I've already been to like 7-Eleven and stuff. Yeah. Seen nothing. Now I'm at the store and I see nothing, and I only see this end cap, and I'm like, one box. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll buy some. And then they were on sale for literally like $2. And I was like, definitely gonna get them, right? So I get like 4, because I'm like, I don't want to take all of them, but I'll get 4. And everybody was like, because the one thing about Alani is that their packaging is phenomenal. Right? Yeah. They have great marketing, branding, all of that, which is why it's partly so popular. So everybody's, oh my God, what bottle? That's so cute. Like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's Alani. And I'm showing it. And because I love the first 4 energy drinks. Like, they're probably some of my favorite, because they aren't as like blast your taste buds.
That's how I felt about the core nutritionals, but they
got rid of them.
They don't make them anymore.
Have you tried the first 4 ones?
I don't think so.
Oh, I'll give you one. I don't have that many left, but I'll give you one. They're like they're more mild flavored, which I like, and they're also, the caffeine is from like green tea, so it's more natural, so you don't have that like plummet that you get from the synthetic caffeine. But anyways, so I'm like, normally the Alanis are the 12 ounces for 200 mgs of caffeine, and so I'm looking as I'm showing people this bottle because they're asking about it. I was like 110, and I was like, did they take out half the fucking caffeine? Because in Australia, there's a lot more regulations on supplements, like a lot more. And I could imagine them having some kind of rule, like per ounce, you can only have, so many, or whatever. I was like, what a ripoff. Thank God I only paid half price. I would have been pissed.
Yeah. I paid for twice the caffeine.
I paid for 200 mgs of caffeine. But it was weird because like all of the other Alanis, like I took a picture and they're, they're made in Kentucky, and this one, made in Australia. And I'm like, what? It was so strange. They're one package. So I don't know. Maybe they tried to sell them there. They didn't take off. I don't know what happened, but it was just funny. And I know you would appreciate it. I was like, well, now I can have two.
Now I can have four.
I should have bought the whole case. I'm going back.
Let's hop on a plane.
So, I guess segue, maybe shaming yourself into change. What a smooth segue.
Anyway.
Well, to finish this up, we do want to touch on, there was one, another, was it a TikTok or a reel?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think it was a TikTok.
Another TT.
Another TT.
And
another titty.
I'm like, another tits. Explain the situation.
So this TikTok, honestly, I saw it a while ago. But basically what this creator person was saying was that she I guess posts a lot of, it's like a fitness account, posts a lot of like, motivational or like just stuff to help you on your journey and stuff. But one of these TikToks that she posted was kind of a weird take. She was just kind of going on about like, hey, if you're struggling to, get on a program or get on track or stay consistent, think about and imagine if you are your worst enemy, and speak to yourself as if you're speaking to someone you absolutely despise. And that will essentially just kind of shame you or just kind of speak very poorly to yourself in order to get your ass moving, basically. And I just thought it was like an awful take. And, like I didn't know we talked about, something about some level of like, I don't know if it was guilt or shame. There's kind of a balance of like how much is normal and how much or what threshold is just unnecessary and kind of counterproductive.
Yeah, so guilt and shame they seem similar, but they are a little bit different in terms of how we define them and how we like internalize them. So when we're thinking about guilt, oftentimes it can be negative, but it's not always negative, right? Like, yeah, sometimes honestly, I think, and other psychologists would agree too, feeling some level of guilt for certain things isn't necessarily a bad thing.
No,
right?
Yeah, because I can see that in different contexts of like, if you did something shitty or if you feel really bad about, the way you spoke to someone, like that is...
Yeah, if you didn't, you would be a psychopath. Yeah. So, we don't want that. So some level of...
No psychopaths.
Yeah, not recommended. 0 stars. 10 stars for the podcast, 0 stars for psychopaths.
Glad we figured that out.
Yeah. But, truthfully, there can be some level of, feeling some guilt around, especially if you said, hey, like, I want to make these changes for myself. Here are my reasons why. And they're rooted in these like really positive kind of like intrinsic values and some extrinsic. Again, like let's be
nothing
real.
wrong with that.
Nothing is wrong with having extrinsic goals. Like everybody likes to say, only make it. Listen, you're not getting through the hard days when you're just thinking about how much better you're going to feel. Like no, you generally want to look a certain way too, and that's okay. Like that's not a problem. But what's different about shame is that it's more of this negative evaluation of like yourself as an individual and it's not about the action. So you could say like in this example, like, okay, I'm feeling a little guilty because I said I was going to be on this diet and then I completely fell off of it that night. And then I let that trail off into the weekend and now it's Monday and I'm kind of feeling a little guilty. If you were to shame yourself about that and be like, I'm a terrible person because I did this. That's the distinguishing factor. You're not a terrible person because you fell off your diet. you fell off of your diet, you made a decision that wasn't in line with your goals, and you kind of feel bad about that. And I think that that's okay. I think that's okay to have that kind of internal mechanism to go, hey, that probably wasn't good. Maybe that's going to spark me to create some action.
Yeah, maybe I'll course correct and,
But hating yourself into change doesn't work. And hating yourself because you, in that example, fell off for the weekend and you think now that you're this broken, bad person, that is never the way to make any kind of lasting change. And certainly could that spark some type of initial change? I'm sure. But I do feel like that would come crumbling down really, really quickly, because especially when people hold a lot of like internal shame, like around themselves, they're thinking about like, they're just kind of pulling themselves down, to a certain level constantly, because they don't really see themselves above whatever threshold, so they're just going to kind of keep bringing themselves down. And that's kind of a whole idea behind like self-sabotage. And
I think it's a good way to like correct certain instances, right? But also like, those are instances where you get to learn about, hey, did this work out for me? What worked? What didn't? And I'll just keep it pushing, It doesn't have to be more deep than that.
Exactly. And, we're really big, of course, on getting our clients to reflect and be introspective and to think about things. And I certainly want everyone to do that. But there also can be a point too where it's too much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you start to teeter into that edge of like, now you're like, okay, well, I felt guilt about this, but is that bad? And should I not feel this way? And hey, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, let's look at the action. Let's look at the behaviors. Let's remove ourselves from it. So we're taking less emotion, just, again, value and character judgment of ourselves. What can we do to change this? Okay. Because the more that you say to yourself and about yourself, oh, I do this because I'm always like this, or this is how, you're going to continue to wire those things in. And we have to be so careful. And I've gotten better, but I still catch myself doing that. Oh, I do this because I'm like this, and we can all joke about that too. Everybody has some self-deprecating humor, but if you constantly say to yourself, oh, I need to do this because I'm like this, or I did this because then you're constantly wiring that, and you're never going to be able to get out of that. So yes, there's definitely something to be said about using a little bit of guilt to kind of like kickstart things. But looking at it in terms of like the action, and not necessarily shaming yourself as in the individual and feeling this negative perception of self, because that is never going to be
productive.
No, definitely not productive. So we hope you guys enjoyed this segment. As always, if you have anything that you want us to react to or comment on, catastrophize on, rant about, our favorite. I have a PhD in catastrophizing. We both do. We have a joint PhD.
Yeah.
We published a paper together. You guys haven't seen it yet because we're catastrophizing.
We're
how
busy,
bad it is.
using it every single week.
We're
adding to it.
We're really busy shaming ourselves into how bad it is. Anyways, if you have other things you want to send us, you can either message either of us to do that. If you have any questions about coaching, you can visit our website, redefinehealthybrands.com. And if you guys enjoyed the show, please, leave a 10-star review.
Yeah. 10 stars
definitely
only.
do that.
5 stars is okay.
5 stars is okay, but 10 stars is
10 stars in your heart.
Oh,
so awesome.
So awesome. And we will talk to you guys next week.